everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Confidence Through Health podcast. This is the first time in a while that I have done a full episode as a solo episode. And I've done my Life Lesson Friday episodes, and this is not one of those because those are short, quick life lessons. In this episode, it's number 320. It is, you know, uh, I didn't do a milestone 300 episode. And I thought about it. I just kept going with interviews like I've been doing, and I've interviewed well over 200 people now from across the globe, which that's mind-boggling just by itself because when I started this podcast in June of 2019, I had no idea that I would meet so many different people and from so many different professions, so many different levels of success by what the world claims is success. But they've all been successful in following their dreams, following their passions, following the things that they value. And that's the topic for today in this episode is understanding the things that you value and how can we make them drive us to create things that we're passionate about that will help us help others. Because I've said this many, many times. If you're not doing something that's helping lift other people, like it, it probably is not giving you the satisfaction that you really, really want. And you might say, oh, well, this person or that person or this type of person, they're not doing things. And so are they truly being helpful? Are they truly being successful? And I'm not here to judge those people or that's what I will tell you is that you can find that in anything that you do, in any profession that's out there. And so while it may not seem like it from the outside looking in, the people that are in there, if they're following the things that they value, they're valuable to them, and everybody's values are slightly different or massively different. But if you're doing the things that you value, typically you're going to be able to lift other people up. And when we all lift each other up, the whole of society improves. We all become healthier. We all become in healthier, not necessarily just in the physical form, but overall, we're talking about spiritual health, mental health, emotional health, physical health, everything. Um, Relationship health, financial health, everything comes together and starts to improve when we're lifting each other up. So the question then becomes like, what do you value and how do you start to implement those things or other things in your life that actually reflect back to your values, right? Because there's obviously things that we do that we do because we have to. Um, Doing the dishes is not necessarily something that's going to drive, I think, anybody's values. Unless maybe you value providing meals to people, and so you own a restaurant, and so doing the dishes is a valuable piece of that puzzle because you have to serve food on clean dishes, right? So there's just one example of like it can tie back to anything that we do. But if doing the dishes is not something that raises your your values or points to your values or helps improve, like sometimes we have those tasks that are just tasks that just have to get done. Um, and the thing is, we do those to be able to then open up time to be able to do other things. If you don't do your dishes and they just stack up and they pile up and they can become a health issue, they can become frustrating, they can become, something that drives you nuts because you look over at the sink and it's just this pile of dishes and you're like, oh my gosh, when am I going to get to that? I can't get to that. It's why isn't somebody else doing it? Like there's so many different thoughts that go through your head that are distracting you from the other things that you want to do. And so a big piece of understanding your values is not just understanding your values, but it's making sure that things that are not pointing that direction are distracting you from being able to do that. So getting rid of those distractions. They may be fun things to do. They may be releases of stress. They may be things that you still want to keep, and that's fine. But removing what we can, minimizing when we do them, and allowing the other pieces of our life to improve towards our values will raise your body, raise your level of commitment to yourself, to your success, to everybody else's around you as well. And you're going to start to find the people that are your people, quote unquote, right? The people in your circle, the people that you tend to do best around. They'll start to like basically you'll start to attract them. They'll start to come around you because they're going to see your vibration. They're going to feel it. They're going to understand what you're going after, and they're going to want to be a part of it. And that's the cool thing. And when you do that, like I've done over the past several years, all of a sudden people start to want to be a part of it. And it's not easy. It's not always easy, I should say. Sometimes it is. It's not always easy. Sometimes it is easy. Sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't intend for all of this to grow like this. But when you're being used towards the values that you have and that are true core values for you, you'll blossom. And sometimes quicker than you realize, sometimes more impactful than you realize is possible. And it's a great feeling. And it also takes care of some of that stress level because it's something that you're passionate about. You have fun doing it, right? You're not necessarily thinking that it's work, that it's all of these things that most of society tells us is going to bring us down, cause us mental health problems or emotional health problems or all of those things. And so when we figure out what we want to, what we value, and sometimes I was talking to one of my clients last week in determining these things, and my job as a life coach in that situation is not to say, "Hey, here's what you value," but is to say, "Here's how you find what you value," right? And a lot of times it's taking quiet time. It could take up to 2 days, but just going somewhere, turn the phone off, turn the like electronics, don't watch TV, don't have, your laptop or your iPad or anything going. Don't scroll social media, those things. Like be alone with yourself and scribble down things that come to mind. Scribble down things that you're like, this is when I was the happiest in my life. This is when I felt like I had the most purpose. These are like jot down, take notes, and not necessarily because you're trying to find, don't go into it thinking, I'm going to find the answer. This is a discovery time. This is a what things are important to me. And then as you get all those things written down, then you can come back to it, look at them all, and try and categorize it and say, is there some similarities in these things that I wrote down? Why do all of these things, what is, are all of these things pointing to a happy family? Are all of these things pointing to a happy, healthy life physically? Are all of these things pointing to great relationships with friends? Like, what is it that they're all pointing to? What is it that they're the similarities behind them? And when you get those and you determine those, it could be, the similarity between all of them is I'm happiest when I'm helping someone, like actively helping someone. Okay, so that's a strong core value in that instance. So what are your values, right? When we determine what those are, then we have to figure out how do we implement and put things in place in our life to where we can share those values. Not necessarily like I'm going to go tell people what they are, but share through our values with people. Um, because the vast majority of us, because the way we were built to have relationships with other people, and we were built for the community part of life. The vast majority of us, our values are going to pertain to interaction with other people in some form or fashion. Now, are some people going to say, well, I value quiet time? Absolutely. And so quiet time's by yourself, right? But if you value quiet time and you're not taking the use of it and you're not implementing that in your life, that could be why things seem to struggle and things to be difficult and things seem to be stressful all the time, right? So once we figure out what the values are, implementing them becomes behavior change, which is really all it takes to make any kind of change in your life. It all consists around behaviors. And what behaviors are we doing? What behaviors do we need to start doing? What behaviors do we need to stop doing? What behaviors do we need to continue doing? Right? That's how we want to change our life. All comes down to the things that we do on a daily basis and what behaviors are we involved in? Are we allowing ourselves to be a part of? And so that consistency of changing behaviors is how you start to use your values to impact your life. It's not about it, it- it's not about making a big, massive change all at once, right? Like that can happen. It does happen. I've interviewed people that have had that happen in their life, that they've had this big change all at once that moves their passion from one area to another. And a lot of times it's a big health scare or something that happens that you go, wow, I need to let everybody else know about this. This is something big. I'm changing my focus in my life to addressing this. Typically when we have that happen, and I had that happen. Typically when we have that happen, we can look back and go, okay, wait, but I can use this skill from this previous area of my life, this skill from this previous area of my life, this skill from this previous area of my life, put all those together. And so the behavior changes don't actually become massive. They just become, I'm tweaking them to go from this industry, this focus to over here as we change the passion and the direction for what we want to do. Because big life changes oftentimes bring a new set of core values or an additional core value into our life that maybe it was an important thing to us, but it wasn't something that was that high up as this is one of the most important things in my life, right? Maybe it was like, I'll focus on it every now and then, I'll think about it once a month or so to now I think about this every hour, right? So when we make that determination of those things and we need to start making behavior changes, then again, we have to look at, okay, well, what are we doing? Right? So it takes a little bit more time to go back and think about what are we doing? What are we doing on a daily basis? Are we doing the things that can create a consistency of behavior towards the values that we want to see show in our life? And, a simple, very common looking at people's lives, something that is unfortunately very common in people's lives is a lot of people know and will say, because I talk to people that are looking for help with their health all the time, and the vast majority say, I probably do have time to exercise. I probably do have time to walk. I could probably work that in. I just don't know how to get started because I have a habit. This is part of the stuff they don't say, but they know it and it comes out in that, well, I have a habit of sitting down and watching TV, scrolling through social media. Like I have a habit of doing these things. And statistically, what they share is that the average American spends 4 hours or so a day scrolling through social media and or watching television. And so if you're spending 4 hours doing those activities, there's a high likelihood you could spare 30 minutes to go walk. And the other thing that research tells us is that exercise doesn't have to be training for a marathon, bodybuilding to bulk up like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like you don't have to do those things, the extreme exercise things. You don't have to do those things to get the benefit out of exercise. And I've talked to several people and interviewed several people that talk about just movement, right? They've stopped using the word exercise and they say movement. Like just move your body because the thing that coincides with watching television or scrolling on your mobile device for 4 hours a day is that typically you're not moving during those 4 hours a day. And if you also have a job where you don't move very much, whether it's sitting behind a desk or standing in an assembly line or sitting in your car because you're driving people all over the place or your Uber Eats or whatever, like there's so many positions now where we are sedentary. And so that lack of movement is key to the life that many of us have fallen into. So the consistency of changing that behavior. When do you change that behavior? And I was talking to one of my athletes yesterday whose mom said, well, it's probably best if we schedule something right after school because as soon as she gets home, she's going to want to have a snack. She's going to want to like fall into, I'm home. I just want to relax. I don't want to go anywhere else. I'll just sit here, do my homework and just chill in my room. And that's a very common thing for many of us, is that we think that the workday's ended. Okay, I don't have to do anything else. And whether or not your work is physically exhausting is not a piece of that puzzle. It's looking at the behaviors. Because the other thing I do know is that it takes a lot to wear your body out, to where you cannot move for 30 minutes, 5 days a week. Like it takes a lot. And if you're doing a lot that much to do that, then yeah, you probably are doing enough physical exercise elsewhere that you don't need to do that 30 minutes. But most of us are not in that situation. The vast majority of us are not in that situation. And statistics show that because our physical health in the Western world, in the civilized parts of the world, is not improving. It's not improving because we are not doing the consistent behaviors that are simple that get us to where we want to be. And I think a big piece of it is not it's not discipline of exercising. It's not discipline of not eating junk food. It's not discipline of following a diet. It's not understanding what we value. Because if we understood that we truly value a healthy body, then it's pretty simple to make those choices. It's pretty simple to make those choices. And a lot of us, unfortunately, don't value that first. And I'm not saying that the things that you value that some of us have values that are very important. Mothers that value taking care of their kids, extremely important. But I've had people that I've interviewed that have said, multiple people have said, for the moms out there, one of the most important things you can do, in fact, probably the most important thing you can do is take care of yourself first, because then you can be available for your kids in a less stressed way, in a healthier way. And yeah, is it tough? Absolutely. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. There's a difference between easy and simple. There's a difference between easy and simple. Simple things can still be hard, and easy things are not necessarily always simple, right? There's a difference between those two words, and we use them interchangeably at times, but there's a difference between those two words. Okay. And so making sure that you understand that, and that sometimes the simple things are hard to do, and that's okay. But it still means we still need to do those things. Okay. And taking care of ourselves is by far, I believe, and many other people I've talked to believe that that is by far the most valuable thing you can do for anybody that you care about. The most valuable thing you can do is take care of yourself. And there's multiple references in the Bible to things like this. Your body is a temple. Take care of your temple. Take care of yourself first before you go help others. Take care of your in a financial standpoint, take care of your household first before you go to try and help others financially, lend money and those types of things. Like, take care of yourself first. Clean up your own act before you go try and help someone else clean up their act. And and that's a big reason why I purposefully did the things that I did in my own life to then start my business, because I had the idea for the business. I think I've mentioned this a couple of times to different people I've interviewed with. I had the idea for my business when I first got out of college, and multiple people talked me out of it because the internet was very, very new, and doing anything over the internet was not, it wasn't a tried and true practice yet. And and I didn't have a business degree, and I didn't have the knowledge of running a business and those things. And so I got talked out of it. And I did multiple jobs along the way where I was management, running businesses, running nonprofits, doing sales, fundraising, doing the different things to learn all the pieces, to where when I came back to it 9 years ago, a little over 9 years ago, and started my business, I had all those tools now to be able to do that. But the thing that I had to do was get my own health back in place, because I was working in the corporate world and I had let myself go. I'd stopped following these things. All these things I'm telling you now, I had stopped doing them myself. And so I started doing them again, and my body started to change back to the healthy side where I needed to be. And now I can see, and so I can tell you, it's not always easy, but it's simple to do these things if you commit to them and if they're valuable to you. And it's simple to continue to do them, because I don't want to do that thing or those things or eat that non-nutritious food, because I know what it's going to feel like. I know what it's going to do to me. I know it's not going to move me to where I want to be. And so if it's not going to move me to where I want to be, why would I want to do it? And it's a very simple concept. It's a very simple concept, but it's a very sometimes difficult concept to put into play, because it's different from what society necessarily tells us. Because They want you to have your cake and eat it too. And it's not always possible. In fact, it's probably rarely possible. And so to have that commitment to yourself will change your life for the better. 100%. 100% of the time. If you commit to yourself, you will change your life for the better because the consistency of the behaviors that you have to put in in plan that you have to operate on, the consistency of those behaviors when you're doing them towards the true values of your life will get you it'll transform your life to where you will be operating and doing the things that you are passionate about, that make you happy, that make you successful on your terms, right? And and it also the funny thing is that it tears away this layer of your life where you feel like you have to fit into society, where you feel like you have to like you have this like this part of you that says, I want other people to accept me into, into their culture, into their society, into their when reality is it doesn't make us happy when that happens. Like, and I've had multiple people that I've networked with and that see me around town and they, comment about my discipline, my commitment to myself, my ability to do what I do when it comes to my athletics and when it comes to my health. And and at first, when I first started out, it was there. I could tell it was a little bit like, but now it's like, oh my gosh, dude, you have shown that it works. Your commitment's unbelievable. I have people that come up to me and ask me if they could have just a percentage of the discipline that I have. Um, how does it work? What does it do? I've got athletes that are like, oh, I'm just trying to implement the little things that you do because if I could just do a little bit the way that you do it. And and I'm here to tell you it's simple, but yeah, it's not easy because you have to be consistent in the behaviors that you see that that result in the things that you want and saying, okay, I have to keep doing those because just because I got what I want once doesn't mean it's going to happen every time. In one of the things that I say to a lot of people in regards to improving themselves, and this is whether it's on the athletic side or in the nutrition side or just in the life side of like, hey, okay, we got the result we wanted. We got it one time, right? We got the result. We saw it. We saw you put a plan in place and we saw it come out with an outcome that you wanted from it. But we want that outcome every time. And so now we have to do that so many times that we can't get it wrong. And that's one of the things that Bruce Lee used to talk about is that if you want to do something right, you have to do it so many times you can't get it wrong, not celebrate the one time you got it right and stop. Just because you got it right once is not the place to stop. That validates that you can do it. That validates that you can do it. It's not it you can celebrate it, but it's not a time to celebrate in a big way. It's a time to say, okay, now I got to do it again. And then I got to do it again. And then I got to do it again. And so passing on the dessert, passing on the sodas, going a full day without having something that you know is not healthy for you, going a full day without opening your social media, getting out and doing a walk, all those things that are like, that's a little bitty one-time behavior that's simple. not necessarily easy, but simple to do, we have to stack that and we have to be consistent with it. And that consistency will start to churn and your life will become different. You will become unrecognizable to the people around you because you're going to change and go towards the person that you value internally if the things that you implement align with the values that you determine are your values. So get that's how we get the life that we are happy with. I'm extremely happy with my life. Are there things that I still desire and want? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not saying that we ever get to the top and the peak. And sometimes when we get to the peak, it's not as exciting and joyful as we thought. And I think sometimes when that happens, it's because that really wasn't the peak as much as it was a stepping stone to the next level, right? Like a lot of times we get up to it and we're like, oh, well, that's great. Doesn't doesn't really change my life much. It's, maybe it's something I can add to my resume that I accomplished, right? Or something that like, but that doesn't, sometimes it just doesn't move the needle as much as we thought it would before we got there. But what it does is it proves a point that we can do it. And, one of the things that I do tell my runners that are athletes, my distance runners specifically, is for the guys, if your goal is to break the 5 minute mile, and I got a lot of young guys that's their first big, like, I just want to break the 5 minute mile. I just want to have a 4 in front of my mile time. And I tell them like, okay, it's not that hard to do. And what you'll find is that once you do it once, you can do it. You can just do it. And it's super easy to do it once you've done it once. And most of them, it's one of those things that's like, it's a desire, it's a want, I need to do it. And once they do it, they're just like, oh, well, that wasn't that big a deal. I'm like, yeah, like it's a big deal, but it's not a big deal. And once you do it, it's extremely possible again. And your body just feels it. And you're just like, all of a sudden you just keep doing it. And yeah, of course, the training piece comes into play and all of that. But you know what those are? Those are behaviors that you're operating on consistently, right? So when we know what we want to go after, when we know what our values are, and we consistently do the behaviors to get us there, we will come out with the outcome that we want. I can't tell you when. That's the one piece that everybody's life situation is different. Everybody's circumstances are different. There's so many things that come into play to the timeline of how things play out. But if you do the behaviors, you will in 3 months be a different person. How much of a different person, how much that needle moves in 3 months, I don't know. The same thing as if you have a goal and you want to get to a certain place, you can get there. Will it take you 3 months? Will it take you 6 months? Will it take you 2 years? I don't know. But if you consistently do the behaviors, you can get there. And and I firmly believe that, and I firmly believe that there are simple things in life that are not easy to do because simple and easy are two different words and they have two different meanings and they cannot be interchanged like we want them to be. But if we consistently do the small, simple things and push ourselves to complete those things and not get down on ourselves when we don't complete them on time or on a daily basis or whatever our parameters are for that. getting down on ourselves, speaking negatively to ourselves, calling ourselves a failure, doubting that we could ever actually get there, thinking that the goals are too pie in the sky and it's not possible. All of those things are preventing us. They are obstacles that we are creating ourselves. There's enough obstacles out there. There's other people that are haters. There's other people that are trying to stand in your way. There's other people that are trying to do the same thing you're doing, and they're trying to get there first. There's so many other obstacles. Stop putting the ones in front of ourselves mentally that we don't need. And so are there things out there that are quote unquote impossible to do? Can you go flap your arms and fly off the ground? No, it's not going to happen unless you've got additional mechanical devices and all this, right? But like if I was to just walk outside right now without anything else and just flap my arms, I'm not going to fly. I know that. It's impossible. Okay? So there are certain things that can't be done. But if you determine something that's realistic, and by the way, those things like that, the flying, the the things that we know that are impossible, they're not gonna change your life that much. Like because they're not realistic. So we know that that's not needed to change our life. There are things that we know are possible if we allow ourselves to know they are possible. There are things that we know are possible that can change our life for the better and provide for us the fulfillment that many of us are looking for. And when we get that fulfillment, so many other things in life become easier to deal with, right? They're not necessarily simple to deal with, but they're easier to deal with. And so finding out what we value, digging into that, digging into ourselves. And a lot of people don't like to do these types of things. And I get that because you don't want to know who you are. You want somebody else to tell you who you are, right? And I've got an athlete who will flat out say, "Can you just tell me what I'm capable of and what I need to do?" And I'm like, "You have to," and his parents too, me and his parents both, "Okay, I can do that, but you have to determine what you want." Like, I can tell you what you're capable of. I can tell you, I can set your goals. I can do all that for you. Of course I can. There's going to be a time in your life where you have to start doing that yourself, right? And when you're a kid and you've all your life followed along with what your coach or your parents have told you to do, then it's easy to just follow what somebody else says. When you're 50, 51, in my case, you got to come up with your own stuff. And the only way to come up with your own stuff is to say, well, what do I value? What's important to me? And so what's important to me is a healthy body. What's important to me is a healthy family life where my kids and my wife are loved and taken care of, and that we can have the relationships that I think we need to be able to build a strong family life and a strong network of family life as we continue on. Another thing that I value is providing the relationships like I had with my grandfather for the clients that I work with, not through me, but so that they can have them through their family unit. I work with a lot of older adults in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and my goal for them is to help them change their health so that they can have the longest relationship possible with their grandkids. Because passing that information on, passing that network, passing that relationship, passing that community love between those generations, I experienced it. It's huge. It's huge. It's massive. And I was just saying this yesterday to my wife and my daughter that my grandmother, like my wife never got to meet my grandmother. Unfortunately, my grandmother died when I was in college, and it was before I met my wife, and so she never got to meet her. But they do so many things alike. They have their differences, and that's true, and that's everybody is. But they do so many things alike, and I'm just like, it's funny, um, how that connection came about. And so that's one of the things that I value especially when I look at the things that I do from a business standpoint, is I value being able to provide that for people. That is a huge driver for what I do. Another thing that I value in the business side of what I do is helping the young athletes that I work with be able to experience and get the opportunity to experience what it's like being a college athlete. Because as one of the moms who was on a recruiting visit a couple of weeks ago, she wrote on Facebook how, oh my gosh, the athletes live a completely different life than the normal student. She was like, I was a normal student. This is outside of like anything I could ever imagine, is what she was seeing that the athletes live. And I experienced that. And granted, all schools are different. And so the what each athlete's going to experience at each school is going to be slightly different in what they're able to provide and all those things, right? But it's still it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, because you're only that age once. You only have that opportunity once. And so to help them feel that, see that, experience that, it's a fraternity of people that it's unique, and it's something you can look back on. Having been a college athlete is something you can look back on and just be like, wow, I can't, I that was amazing that I got those opportunities to do that, to travel all over the country, to compete in against different people, to see people that I competed against in the professional ranks, in the Olympics, in the different areas. Like, it's it that, or, both also competed against and that were my teammates. Um, and so it's just it's a different experience. And so that's something that I value from the business side of things. And then with my podcast, the thing that I value with my podcast is that I'm able to talk to people across the world and provide information to people across the world that breaks down how to live a healthy life, that it's possible, right? That it's possible, that that's you're capable of doing it, and how to do it in a holistic way, how to do it without like taking medicine for the rest of your life, without having to do those things that we know are detrimental long term. Now, and I've said this before, acute cases, medicine is definitely necessary. When I had my lung collapse, the two times that it's collapsed in my life, and they gave me medicine for the pain, believe me, I was hitting that button like, give me some more, give me some more, give me some more, when I was in the hospital, right? Like, because it was super painful, and I can take up a lot of pain. I can take a lot. Like, my physical therapist jokes, it's like if I report a pain level of 2, it's like a 9 in everybody else. Um, because she's just like, your level of pain tolerance is off the charts. So I can take a lot of pain, but I was hitting that button. But we should not be in situations where we have put ourselves, we've created the problem, and there is absolutely a solution, that's non-medical, but we've created the problem that we're now on medicine for the rest of our lives. And and so one of the things that I had a client who messaged me, was beyond excited. This was 2 months ago, I believe. Messaged me and said he had his doctor's visit, his quarterly doctor's visit, and his A1C had dropped. And the doctor told him, if it drops again in the next 3 months, we'll be able to take you off the diabetes medication. And he was ecstatic, beyond ecstatic, and thrilled. And just like, and those are the things that drive me to do what I do. Because I'll be honest with you, I have made $0 from this podcast. I have made $0 from this podcast. And so 320 episodes in, you have to have a passion. You have to have something else driving you, because finances isn't doing it, right? Finances isn't doing it. It's cost me money to put this on. And what drives me is, can I help someone? Can I interview somebody and provide information that helps someone take back control of their health? And if you can take back control of your health, you get control of your life. That's a big, big, big thing. That's a big thing. And you may be out there thinking or listening to this and going, there's no way I just can't do it. That's impossible. I can't possibly do that. That's it's just, I've been on this medication too long, or I've been in this situation too long, or I'm too addicted to the food, or there's so many things that we tell ourselves that reality, they aren't true. We want to believe them, because what happens is, if we stop believing them, we have to admit to ourselves that we're not able to make the change, and we're not willing to make the change, because the change may be simple, but it's definitely not easy. And so I do the podcast because I want to be here for those people. I want to be here for those people. I want those people to know that somebody believes in them, that somebody's trying to help them. In my little own way, somebody is trying to help them get their life back, because nobody should be struggling with those things. And so many people do. And I'm not trying to say that your reasons that put you in that position are not valid. I'm not at all trying to say that. But I want to give you the strength to take it back. And having seen so many people be able to do it, I know that it's possible. And so, like, going back to the quick analogy I did about the distance runners, like, I'm not asking my athletes to break the world record, right? Like, I'm not asking them to do something that only one person ever has done. I'm asking them to do something that I see they're capable of doing, that's possible, because they're close, and that so many other people have done. And so, taking back your life from diabetes, from any other chronic health issues, like, taking your life back from those things is 100% possible. And I've interviewed, oh, well, over 200 people in different areas of health that have examples and examples and examples of people that have been able to do it. People that have been able to turn the trajectory and start pointing in a different direction, in a healthier direction, in a direction that gives them their life back. And so that's one of the things that drives me. And that's one of the things that I value, is being able to help people do that, because I'm a coach. Like, I denied it when I was in high school. I had multiple people tell me I was going to be a great coach. I had one of the greatest coaches that has ever lived, who was one of my coaches in high school, and his name's Pete Boudreau. He's not only in Louisiana Hall of Fame for athletics, he's in the U.S. High School Hall of Fame. He's like his accolades are he's been the number one, he's been the coach of the year. I don't know how many times nationally for both cross country and track and field in high school. Um, he said people did, I don't know, it's just it's crazy that the success that he's been able to have people performing, and multiple people tell me that they could see his influence on me and that they could see that I was going to be a great coach one day. And at the time I was like, I don't want to be a coach. I don't want to be a coach. That's I don't want to do that. And I don't know why. I couldn't tell you why I was saying that I didn't want to do it. I was just like, nah, that's not me. That's not. And here I am. I denied it for a long time. And I did other things in the corporate world. Like I said, I was into management, I was in fundraising, I was in sales. The thing that always showed up when I look back at it, when I started my business 9 years ago and looked back and said, okay, well, if this is going to happen, I got to pull all my traits from all my different things together to be able to make this work. And the thing, all my skills and everything, the thing that had the most common thread through everything was that, yes, I was doing the job's tasks for this job, but I was coaching people through it. Or I was doing the tasks for this job over here, but I was coaching people. Like in in that world, right? I'm not talking about a side job. I'm talking about in that world, whether it was customers or employees or coworkers. I look back and I was coaching people all the way through. And so it is who I am, right? It is who I am. And to be able to use that to help people is what drives me. And so what drives you, right? What do you value? And if you don't know what your core values are, and you can have two, you can have five, like there's no limit. You have too many, if you have 20, 25, you're going to be confused. You're always going to be trying to figure out what to do because you're going to have this like there's too many things. But you're going to have a few. When you determine what those are, and like I said, a big piece of validating, is this truly a core value, is being able to look back and say, how do I see it playing out in my life in the past? When I looked back and went, oh, coaching has been all through all of these jobs for me. That's when I was like, and when coaching wasn't involved, it was a job that I really didn't like. Right. And so it was like, oh, it was pretty obvious. Like I didn't like that job because I wasn't doing any of this. When you can find those things that are common threads, the things that point to who you are and what you want to accomplish and what you value, then putting the behaviors in place, it will change your life, but it'll change the people around you. And you'll start doing things that, when I started this podcast, I think I've said this before on the podcast. When I started this, I'd never actually even listened to a podcast. Like I knew what they were. I'd never really listened to one until one of my friends said, you need to start doing a podcast because the stuff that you're putting out on Facebook Lives is super valuable. You need to start doing this. And so I had to start listening to some to figure out, what is it? What do I do? Right. So when you find those things that you value, sometimes you may have to go like, where do I start? What do I do? What do I find somebody else that's already doing it? Find somebody else that you can learn from, that you can see the example that's already been set, and you can start implementing the behavior changes that you need to make. And like I said, There'll be some that are super simple, and that's fine to start with those. They may not be easy, but start with the simple ones so that you can get some traction, you can get some movement, you can start doing the things, and then they'll snowball into the bigger things that you need to tackle to make those changes and become who you want to become. And um, when you do those things, it does change your life, and you'll start to see that other people will start to say things about how they start to see you in a different way, um, in a better way, right? And I like they're going to start to notice those healthy changes that are going on in your life that may or may not be physical changes, right? But they're healthy changes because your spirit's better, your emotions are better, your mental health is better. All of the it's about wellness and whole and total, not just about what your physical body looks like or the health that, quote unquote, the scale tells you. Um, because there's so much more to our health. There's so much more to who we are. And what I want for you is for you to be able to find that, to be able to implement those things, to be able to help society and improve all of us. And that's the message for today. And I'm happy to help anybody figure that out, help you navigate through, hey, what are some of the things that I'm missing, right? Like, what is it? Like, contact me, message me. Like, let's get that done so we can move forward. Like, and that's one of the things that I look back at. Would I have changed the things in my life that have happened? No, but would I have looked back and gone like, you know what? If I had just started then, when God told me to start it, how much different would it look now? I don't know, because I didn't have the life experiences that I needed to have to be able to do the things that I do now. So it would definitely look different, right? It would definitely look different. So I don't live in the past though, right? I'll think about that every now and then, like, oh, what would it be like if I had done this? But the thing is that I know I'm right where I'm supposed to be, and I know that he's providing exactly what I need to provide to be able to do the next things that I need to do to be able to help you get the information that you need to be able to move to the next step. So that is basically how you start the process of taking back control of your life. Find out what you value, start making consistent changes in your behavior that are going to point you to doing things that are in line with those values. And you do those things, and life's going to change. You're going to become unrecognizable to those around you in a good way. Like they're going to enjoy it, they're going to like it, and hopefully you're going to spur some of them to be inspired to make some of those same changes too. Because that's one of the other things that I hear a lot from people is that they are inspired by how I live my life. And it inspires them to do healthier things, to do more, to push themselves because they see what I do in how I live my life. And I ran a race a couple days ago, and there was a 17-year-old who I beat who said, "Man, if I could run like you when I'm 51, holy cow, like how crazy would that be?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's not crazy because I can do it." Right. And that's sort of like, I was like, "Yeah, you could do it. Totally. You just got to keep at it." And he was like, "Whoa." I'm like, "Yeah." Because, and I could tell he didn't have to say, "You inspire me." The conversation said, "Dude, you inspire me." Right. And that's enough for me. Like, that's enough. That's good. Like, I don't need more than that. I just need to know I'm helping him. I might not ever talk to him again. And I've had multiple occasions where that's happened at races where I finish, somebody comes up to me, we can have a conversation. I can tell that they're inspired by what I did, and I might not ever see him again, and that's fine because I gave them that little piece of inspiration and motivation that they needed to be able to say, maybe I can do it too. And that's the key piece. You can do it.